What's going on, friends? This is Josh, the owner and trainer of Mirkwood Bestiary's Kennels, and this is the Work.Podcast. So, I just want to start off by saying a couple of the things that we're going to be talking about in our podcast. First, in this introduction episode, we're going to be talking about the origin of the Mirkwood Bestiary's Kennels, what got us started in dog training, our start in dog breeding, our goals for our breeding program. Then we're going to be discussing the goals for this podcast, some of the guests that we're going to be having in some future episodes, as well as some of the breeds that we're going to be discussing. And at the end of every episode, we're going to be doing a working dog breed recognition moment, so that way we can talk about certain working breeds that I feel have earned their spot and their time to shine in the light. So, without further ado, welcome to the Work.Podcast. So, the origins of Mirkwood Bestiary's Kennels, we started back in 2022. We wanted to make sure that we can bring quality working dogs to responsible homes, regardless of what the owner might be looking for. Whether they may be looking for a companion dog that can be able to protect their home whenever they're not there, protect their children, or they need a dog that is going to actually go out to work with them in the working field, whether that be as a cart pulling dog, a dog that is a therapy animal, whether they, like my dog Goliath, are used in canine security. So we want to make sure that we're able to provide the best type of dog for every possible scenario. So, as well as if these dogs want to go into shows as well. So we want to make sure we don't exclude anybody, but we want to recognize the fact that these are working dogs. So working dogs need to go into working homes. These aren't, hey, let's get these dogs because they look cool type of dogs. If you get a dog for that reason, you're getting it for the wrong reason. So you want to make sure that anytime that you decide to invest not only your money, but time in your life to getting an animal like this, like the Fila Brasileiro, the Cane Corso, the Dogo Argentino, the Turkish Malakli, the Borbal, you want to make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into. Do the proper research before you get one of these dogs. Talk to some of the people who own these dogs. Don't just take what you read readily on Google, seeing a couple of YouTube videos. Go on Instagram. Go and see a couple of people's dogs. If you see any of them in person, actually talk to the owner and see what it's like, what their pockets are looking like when they have to go and pay to feed these beasts. Because it's something that you got to make sure that you're ready to commit to. So, we also wanted to make sure that we were doing our part to restore some of these dog breeds that were near extinction. For example, the Cane Corso. The Cane Corso, about 70 or so years ago, was almost extinct. So we want to make sure that we do our part to responsibly and ethically help restore the breed, so that way other people down the road can be able to enjoy this breed as well. So it's an honor to be able to work with these type of dogs. Corsos, in my opinion, they are one of the best utility dogs, in my opinion. Now, a couple of my partners that I work with that breed different breeds, they have their own opinion, and everyone is entitled to their opinion. What works for one person may not necessarily work for another, which again ties into making sure that you know exactly what you're signing up for, regardless of what breed it is. For the most part, a lot of these people with their very big machismo personalities, but they don't have the commitment to take care of these big dogs, they're better off getting a Chihuahua. Sometimes even that's too much for them. So you want to make sure that when you're putting time into doing stuff, you're putting the right amount of time, and you're making sure that you're actually giving your animals the time that they deserve. Any time that you're going to get any type of animal, just as like if you were to have any children, you got to make sure that you put all the time that you need to dedicate to make sure that they're a good member of society into doing that, so that way they turn up right. So it's the same thing with your dogs. You want to make sure that you rear your dogs so that way your dogs are doing good and your dogs don't end up growing up to be these unnecessary and unprovoked biters that you can't tell if they're going to flip the switch one day or if they're just going to be relaxing another. So breeding unpredictability into dogs is never a good thing. You want to make sure that anytime that you breed, you know the temperaments of the dogs that you're pairing together. You know the genetic background of the dogs that you're putting together. So that way when you decide to put two dogs together, you know that you're making magic happen. So that way, anytime that you give one of those dogs to someone, it's the best possible dog that you can produce, not the worst. You never want to just hand out the worst quality dogs to people, especially people that can't handle that. So doing that is only creating more problems for society and more problems in the community. So that's one thing that we want to try to strive to go against, as well as the fact that we want to defy a lot of expectations and a lot of what the public stereotypes are in terms of what type of dogs can be kept around other type of dogs. A lot of people told me that my Corsos couldn't be around my Dogos, and that my Dogo couldn't be around my Malakli, and that my Malakli couldn't be around my Alibi. But if you've ever seen any of the videos that we produce on our Mirkwood Bestiary Instagram, you'll see all my dogs love each other. Never once since I established my breeding program has any of my females got into a fight. And I have videos of both of my females that are only 10 days separated from each other in terms of age. Both of them are in heat playing around with each other. So my girls love each other just as much as my men do. So I want to make sure that all my dogs, they know their place in terms of the hierarchy with their age. So all my dogs, they love each other and they get constant interaction with each other. They train together. So, and I mix and match which dogs come with me to go to work. So that way my dogs are always working. They get a lot of time where they're just relaxing, but when they're working, they're working. So it's one thing you got to make sure that you understand, especially when you're having different breeds and you have a lot of different genders or multiple of the same gender. You teach them that you're the boss, that there is no chance and there's no time for them to focus on infighting. The only thing they need to focus on is what you want them to do. So these are things you want to make sure that you instill the moment you get the dog. And that, in turn, is part of what got us into dog training. We wanted to make sure that when we help people get their dogs right, we prevent a lot of the issues that are very fixable. There's a lot of dogs that I've worked with where it was very basic fixes, but it required constant work and constant effort put in on the owner's part. But the owners didn't know how to do it, and they didn't know how to properly watch for the signs, how to properly implement it. One of the best clients that I've had, the owner of these two Corsos, the first Corso that I worked with, a beautiful female Corso. A couple of other trainers worked with this dog beforehand and decided that the dog couldn't be worked. So they didn't want to work the dog or risk getting anywhere close to the dog. So I told them that if I couldn't work the dog, keep your money, the whole session is going to be for free. So as soon as we went over there, I told them to just relax, stay calm, and just keep talking to me. I went right up to the gate where they had the dog at. The dog was barking, going crazy, foaming at the mouth, and I didn't even acknowledge the dog. I was just focused on the owners, talking to them. Over time, the dog started getting confused, like, hey, why aren't you scared of me? ordinarily people are scared of me. Then the dog started relaxing, dying down. Then once the dog started laying down but just staring at me, even with me just moving around, lifting up my legs, doing some high knees, the dog was just chilling. So at that point, I told the owners to open the door, put the dog on a leash, and just stay calm, keep talking to me. After that moment, the owner got his dog on the leash. He stayed talking to me. She started barking a little bit again. Same thing. After a while, when she died down, I told him, okay, now hand me the leash. As soon as he did, he was like, are you sure? I said, bro, trust me. She's good now. As soon as he handed me the leash, I told her, hey, come on, let's go and take a walk. Then at that moment, I taught her how to properly come and walk on a leash without having to go and pull the owner. So that was an amazing thing for them to see. We started working on our heel, on our on-command sits. Obedience training started from that moment, and it blew the owner's mind. At first, he thought he was just going to be doing another session of what he thought was futile, but he wanted to make his wife happy. And after that, after seeing the work that I did with her at that moment, he started to see the progress. And over time, those two people, man, the work that they put in with that girl, she's able to go wherever she wants. She's able to leave the house, go on walks. She has a new little brother that she plays with vigorously, and they get to enjoy life. They got their confidence back, and they get to do whatever they want with their baby. And that's what we strive for. We want to make sure that we help keep dogs out of the shelters that end up being kill shelters, and we want to keep these dogs off of the euthanasia table, and we want to keep these dogs able to go into the world. What I'm able to do with my dogs, you should be able to do with yours. My dogs are able to go in any environment. It doesn't matter which dog I bring. I can bring Goliath, my protection dog, into any environment, and as long as you don't touch him without my permission, you're good. But if you try to touch him without my consent, you're going to get snapped on. But that, in part, is your responsibility as the owner of a protection dog. If you see somebody trying to reach for your dog, or you take your dog into public and you know that it's a protection dog, you need to make sure that you are aware of what's going on with your dog. It doesn't matter if you're looking at the cutest woman, the cutest man. If you have your protection dog with you, you need to be aware of your surroundings and what's going on around them. Because more likely than not, your dog might look cute as well. And there's going to be a lot of coochie cooers who want to go and try to get all up in your dog's face, thinking that they know more about your dog than you do. So you got to make sure that you're also able to properly educate people. Maybe hit them with the karate chop right to the hand. Be like, can't touch him. Don't touch my dog. You didn't ask. Sorry, ma'am, that's a protection dog. Please don't touch my dog without asking, ma'am or sir. So these are things that we want to make sure that we also educate people, and that we show people how they can properly live their life with their dogs. So one thing that got us started in our breeding program, we started with our Corsos. We have our main Corso, Goliath, who is the older brother of our second Corso, George, both of which their grandfather is one of the dogs from the Game of Thrones series that was owned by, I believe he was the Ramsay Bolton guy who got his face chomped on by the Corso that was one of the dogs that he would feed people to. The dog that got all up in his face, that's the grandfather of both of my Corso boys. Both of them have ribbons that they've won. Goliath has got his awards from AKC, as well as some awards from some local pet shows. Same thing with Goliath. Both of them have won a couple best in shows. Goliath has won a second biggest Corso in show, and both of them have work in protection work. So both of my dogs, I wanted to make sure that my males, especially with their background, they work and that they have a very fulfilling life, making sure they get their stretch Armstrong on all day long. So my two boys, they love to play around. George especially, that boy has got stamina. And if you see him in any of the videos that I've posted about him, man, you can see the muscle definition on that boy. He's just like a giant, small, condensed tank. And Goliath is like a long-streamed gazelle, but pitch black. The face that he has, you can see that he means no games. So he's a very amazing dog and one that I've been very proud to own. As well as in our breeding program, we have our Dogo Argentino, Mika. Man, when I say courage embodiment in a dog, this girl can do it. When I was being mentored by Real Deal Dave at Real Deal Dog Training, he had one of the most immaculate agility courses that I've seen, and as a puppy I would run her through that agility course as well as having her climb up a 20-foot ladder, and this girl could do what a lot of dogs that are full grown still have issues doing. One thing that he always loved seeing. So that's one thing that I specifically work on with her. Now, a lot of people seem to think that the Dogo Argentinos are a dog breed that is a very specifically dog-aggressive dog. Now, while that is the case with most Dogo Argentinos, again, it all depends on the upbringing and how you bring up these dogs. If you raise a dog to be aggressive, a dog will be aggressive. If you raise a dog to hate people, the dog will hate people. If you raise it to hate animals, it's going to hate animals. With my Dogo Argentino, I make sure that she knows that her pack and other animals are not something for her to bite. Grown men, something that she can bite. With all of my animals, I make it very apparent when I'm out in public. Grown men are not allowed to pet my dogs. Only women and children are allowed to pet my dogs. And that's a message that I want to make clear in my dogs' heads. When they see a woman or a child, they're allowed to be pet by them. But if they see a man, they need to be ready to go and snap on them the moment that they see that they're a okay target. So you want to make sure that the message is clear with your dogs, and you don't want to confuse your dogs. Anytime that you confuse your dogs and say, okay, this man is okay to be pet you, but this man isn't, then the dogs aren't going to be able to see too much of a distinction in that. So they might be able to recognize the scent over time of someone that you want allowed in your property, you want allowed around them. But if your dog is a working protection dog, you never want to make sure that you're confusing your dog. So the reason why I specifically want women and children also to be okay around my dogs is because of the fact I show my dogs. And more likely than not, in a lot of show environments, there's a lot more female judges that I've seen and that I've noticed rather than there be male judges. So I want to make sure that whenever my dogs go out to a show, that I'm able to properly have the judge go and run their hands along my dog if they need to, go and assess them how they need to. If it was any other dog other than a dog that is also used in protection, guarding, or whatever the dog's working purpose is. So, along with my Dogos and my Corsos, we have our Turkish Malakli, Mother Mary, and this dog is amazing. Brought to us by Shogun Imperial. This girl, not only is she one of the biggest females that I've seen in the Malaklis, she's currently only a year old, and she's at 33 inches. Now, if you've ever looked up the size expectancy of a Turkish Malakli, you'll see that the females generally are around 31 inches and the males are 33 inches. So she's at the height of a full-grown male, and she still has about a couple more years of growth to do. So this girl is amazing, and when I say that she can run and that she's got stamina and strength, when she plays with her siblings, she goes in and she doesn't let up. The only time that she's done is when she says she's done. So she's such an amazing dog, and one that I've been very, very proud to own. So she's a very smart girl, goes almost everywhere with me on the daily basis. Other than that, we have our Dutch Shepherd, Duchess, brought to us by my former mentor, Real Deal Dave from Real Deal Dog Training. This girl is crackhead incarnate. She's from one of their working drive breedings that they did to bring out the working drive in the dog Cleo that's owned by Real Deal Dave, and the dog Morty that is owned by Real Deal Carrie. And man, this girl, her working drive is off the charts. Such an amazing dog, such crackhead energy. Out of all my dogs, she's the one that easily outpaces all of them. It doesn't matter if it's my Corsos, if it's my Malakli, my Dogo, or my Alibi. This girl, she paces them all to the ground. And then she's got more energy after that. So she's such a good dog, and as well as her trainability, she loves to work. If she sees that it's go time and she sees the prong collar, she's ready to go. So we want to make sure that anytime that our dogs that we work, we want to make sure that when they see that it's game time and that it's time to work, that their drive is right. So that way they know that, hey, it's time to do something. Let's go out in the world and explore. Let's get today popping. So it's an amazing thing to be able to own her. She's such an amazing production. Her coat, magnificent. Drive, off the charts. So, and her temperament, she loves being around her siblings, playing with them, and as soon as they're all tired out, she'll go and relax with them and just relax on the cool tile. But she's such a great dog. And other than that, we have our final dog currently in our breeding program, which is Morticia, brought to us by Alibi Kings. And man, when I say that this girl, in a lot of the videos that I was sent when she was a puppy, she was the bully of the litter, little aggro rage baby. This girl was wild, always barking, going crazy with her litter mates. But now that she's over here with us, man, she loves her siblings, always relaxed. She's right here around two of my other dogs and is just passive, calm, was just laying down with them. So she's such a loving little puppy, and she's growing to be like a little fluffy bear cub. So she's such a beautiful dog, and it's been such a pleasure being able to own her. So as we expand our breeding grounds, we're going to be branching into a lot more different dog breeds to expand our breeding program. But as well as the goals for our breeding program, we want to make sure that we're breeding quality purebred working dogs, as well as working on my own specific project to create the best, in my opinion, working quality dog. So it's not going to necessarily just be a Mastiff, because it's going to be a combination of Mastiff and Shepherd breeds. So the Shepherds, from my research, I've seen generally have a longer lifespan, as well as they have the good working drive. The Shepherds that I'm going to be using, being the Malaklis and the Alibis, they're large breed Shepherds that also have Molosser genetics in their background. So in my opinion, these are dogs that would be compatible to breed into with my Corsos and with the Mastiffs that I have in my program that I'm going to be using. So it's something that we want to make sure that when we do it, again, we're taking account the proper temperament, we're looking at the genetics, we're doing the health testing on these dogs to make sure that there's no issues with the pairing. We want to make sure that we're not incorporating any form of merling in our project. I know a lot of people that try to breed into different types of Mastiffs want to try to go for the merle look. And while that works for some people, to me, it's associated with faulty genetics if it's not something that is supposed to be there already. And since I'm trying to make something new and better, I don't want something that's bad but looks nice to be in there. The dog breeds that we're going to be using naturally have really nice coats, none of which are associated with brindling, so it's something that we want to make sure that we're using and we're utilizing for the purpose that we're trying to achieve. So with the dog that we're trying to create, we want to see a life expectancy in a giant breed dog that's at least 16 plus years and the maximum working age of 9 years at best. Now, ordinarily, we wouldn't expect that for about maybe 4 or 5 generations to start seeing some results in what we're looking for, but that's something we're not necessarily worried about trying to rush. We want to make sure that we're taking our time to make sure we get our genetics right, we get the right dogs for the right pairings. When we do our partnering and when we do our co-parents on our litters, we want to make sure that the right people are going to make sure that these dogs get the right owners and we have the right people keeping track of everything that we want, studying them as they grow to make sure that they're focused on the right things that we want to focus on as they're maturing. So, another thing that we want to make sure that we do with our breeding program is we want to put, again, these dogs in homes of people that know exactly what they're signing up for. All of the dogs that come from my kennel, they come with a breeding contract. So we want to make sure that these people understand what they're getting signed up for and that they're held liable if they don't want to comply with that. I've seen and heard a lot of horror stories about a lot of dogs that have gone out to some people that seemed like they were okay, and these dogs lost their lives. So it's something we do not want to happen with our dogs, and it's something that we want to make sure that we prevent with the lives of any dogs that we produce or that any of our partnered breeders produce. So these dogs are just like any child. They deserve to have a good life and be set up for success, not failure. So, in the second part of what we're going to be talking about, we want to make sure that we're talking about the goals for our podcast. So, part of that, we're going to be talking about different types of working dog breeds, and we're going to be talking about how to properly own any type of working dog breed that you might specifically be interested in. We want to make sure that we're educating people on these working dog breeds, what these dogs are capable of, what the stigmas are against these working dog breeds, and what you can expect when you own one of these working dog breeds. So we also plan on interviewing and talking with a lot of different trainers of specific professional dog breeds, as well as making sure that we're also talking with certain breeders that we're partnered with and that breed specific dog breeds, as well as exotic dog breeds for the people that don't know about a lot of dog breeds, such as the Chinese Red Dog. This is an amazing working dog that not too many people are aware of. But man, does this dog have amazing working qualities, and can this dog do things in the right hands? So we also want to make sure that we as well talk about a lot of controversial topics on this podcast. We're not really going to be trying to spare a lot of people's feelings on the things that really matter, as well as cropping, docking, and making sure that when your dog is working in the field, hunting, that these people understand that your dog is going to get hurt and you need to understand what needs to happen with that. So working dogs, again, have to be treated as working dogs. We love our animals, but we also need to make sure that we set our dogs up for success, not failure. So we also plan on talking about proper breeding and improper handling of dogs when trying to train these dogs. You want to make sure that you're getting your dog the right picture and a clear message anytime that you're working with your dog. So part of that is making sure that we're getting you with the right trainers in the right areas that you might be in, all across the US and all across the globe. So in the next episode that we're going to be having, which is going to be our first episode, we're going to be having an interview with a good buddy of mine, Elijah, the owner of SoCal Presses. And man, is this guy something special. This guy is such a pleasure to work with, such a knowledgeable man, and someone that's taking the breeding of real quality working line Presa Canarios to the next level. So in the next episode, we're also going to be discussing the origins of the Presa Canario and what you can expect with owning a dog that comes from that genetics, or if you happen to want to work with one of these dogs, what you can expect with having to deal with a dog with this type of temperament. So, closing up this episode, we want to make sure that we're giving our first working dog breed recognition to one of the most common and standard working dogs that anyone is usually associated with when they think about a working dog. And that would be the German Shepherd. The dog breed originated back in Germany in 1899. It is the third most intelligent dog breed out of all the dog breeds in the canid species. It's an amazing all-around dog, also known in Britain as the Alsatian. The temperament varies depending on the lineage, if it's from the show line or the working line. The show lines being a lot more mild-mannered and laid back, and the working line being a lot more driven and having really high prey drive. So these are dogs that, depending on what you're looking for, you want to make sure that you're going to the right person to go and get the right dog for you, which again makes sure that anytime that you're talking to a breeder, trying to see what kind of dog you want, that you're very clear with what you're looking for in that dog. So I just want to thank anyone who is listening to this podcast for staying tuned and checking out our podcast. This is Josh from Mirkwood Bestiary signing off, and thank you for listening to The Work Podcast.